20th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with the 2024 U.S. Democratic National Convention. The four-day event kicks off in Chicago, where Vice President Kamala Harris is set to be officially nominated as the party's presidential nominee. Our party's 2024 policy platform also includes a vow that the United States will stand by South Korea and other allies to counter North Korean threats. The U.S. has given the green light for a sale to South Korea of $3.5 billion worth of defense equipment, including Apache attack helicopters, to help improve the security and defense capabilities of Seoul. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Israel has accepted Washington's new Gaza ceasefire proposal, leaving the rest up to Hamas now. The U.S. Democratic Party convention now begins over in Chicago. And ahead of the four-day event, the parties come up with a new party platform emphasizing cooperation with allies, especially South Korea. Our Choi Soo-young starts us off.
With the upcoming presidential election in November, the U.S. Democratic Party has unveiled its new policy platform that clearly states its ongoing support for South Korea against North Korean provocations. On Sunday local time, the Democratic National Committee released the 2024 Democratic Party platform. In the platform, the Democrats emphasized that they have always stood with South Korea in the face of illegal missile enhancements by the North, and they will continue to do so. They also stressed that they will never turn their backs on their allies. On Monday local time, the opening day of the Democratic Convention in Chicago, the Democrats said that America is strongest when its partners are strong. They criticized former President and current Republican candidate Donald Trump, claiming that his actions damaged U.S. relationship with its allies, making the country less safe. The platform also stated that the U.S. will continue to lead the world and will work with allies in Europe and the Indo-Pacific to counter security cooperation between North Korea, Iran, and Russia. Meanwhile, the U.S. Vice President and current Democratic candidate Kamala Harris announced that she would raise the corporate tax rate if elected. On Monday, James Singer, a spokesperson for Harris's campaign, stated that if Harris wins the election, she will increase the corporate tax rate from the current 21% to 28%. Singer explained that this is a financially responsible plan aimed at reducing the tax burden on workers and ensuring that billionaires and large corporations pay their fair share. Trump had lowered the corporate tax rate from 35% to current 21% during his presidency. While Harris is planning a rise in corporate tax, Reuters has reported that her Republican rival Donald Trump has hinted at the possibility of eliminating the $7,500 tax credit for electric vehicle purchases in the U.S. if he is re-elected. Experts said if this tax credit is removed, it could directly affect electric vehicle sales and have a negative impact on the battery industry. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
The U.S. has approved the potential sale of Apache attack helicopters and other defense-related products to South Korea. According to the Defense Security Cooperation Agency, the U.S. State Department gave the green light to a potential government-to-government foreign military sale worth some $3.5 billion. This comes as Seoul made a request to purchase up to 36 Apache attack helicopters, as well as helicopter engines, Hellfire missiles, and more. The agency said the sale would support the foreign policy goals and national security objectives of the U.S. by bolstering the security of allies like South Korea. Now, the sale requires congressional approval. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says Israel has accepted a U.S.-led proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza and a hostage release deal. Now, Washington's top diplomat also called on Hamas to do the same. Lee Seung-ja has more.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Israel on Sunday in the hope of getting Israel and Hamas to agree to a ceasefire and hostage release deal. During his visit, Washington's top diplomat also held talks on Monday with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Isaac Herzog. After their sit-down, Blinken said that Israel had agreed to the U.S.-led proposal while calling on Hamas to do the same.
In a very constructive meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu today, he confirmed to me that Israel accepts the bridging proposal, that he supports it. It's now incumbent on Hamas to do the same. And then the parties, with the help of the mediators, the United States, Egypt, and Qatar, have to come together and complete the process of reaching clear understandings about how they'll implement the commitments.
Despite Israel's agreement, Blinken said that even if Hamas accepts the deal, a number of complex issues would remain for mediating nations and negotiators to work on, but did not elaborate on what those issues might be. But with past ceasefire deals failing, Israel and Hamas continue to blame each other for the lack of agreement. Hamas on Sunday accused Netanyahu of putting conditions on the deals that only benefit the military in prolonging the aggression in Gaza. However, Netanyahu on the same day stressed that Israel cannot just give and give, hinting that it's not willing to accept conditions put forth by Hamas. Meanwhile, Israel conducted airstrikes targeting a Hezbollah weapons depot inside Lebanon. According to a report by Reuters, citing security sources, the strike did not result in any fatalities. However, Lebanon's health ministry said 8 were injured, including 2 Syrian children. The Israeli military said that it conducted airstrike on a number of Hezbollah weapons storage facilities, adding that with the presence of secondary explosions, large amounts of weapons were destroyed in the attack. The latest airstrike is the second targeting Hezbollah weapons depot in the past 3 days, as the Israeli military targeted another on Saturday, leading to 10 deaths, including 2 children. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And the 2024 DNC comes at a favorable time for Harris as she's really gaining momentum, and the latest polls show it. Will Harris' honeymoon period last, though, and if so, for how long? For more, we are joined by Voice of America correspondent Catherine Gibson this morning. Welcome, Catherine.
Good to be with you.
Catherine, first of all, walk us through the major events that are in store for the next 4 days. Who's going to be there and who's speaking?
Well, it's a lot to walk you through because it is a packed schedule these 4 days at the United Center behind me. We, of course, are going to be hearing from President Joe Biden this evening, introduced by First Lady Jill Biden, and the only other woman who's ever been a major party nominee, Hillary Clinton, the former Secretary of State. Then we'll hear from 2 former Democratic presidents tomorrow night, Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. And then the really marquee events of this convention, we'll hear the nomination acceptance speech from Vice President nominee Tim Walz. And then, of course, on the final evening Thursday, we'll hear from Vice President Kamala Harris as she formally accepts the Democratic nomination.
So lots of key figures with Joe Biden and being the headliner. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, this convention appears to be taking place at the right time, especially for Harris, considering, you know, nationwide polls really show she's leading her competitor, Donald Trump. Is Harris far ahead of Trump?
So it shows a varying story in some of the key swing states across the United States. And that's what we know is really the important number to be looking at. In the overall national poll, she is doing much better than Trump. But again, because of the Electoral College, we need to look at those key swing states. Now, history teaches us that conventions always give the nominee a bump in the polling. So after this convention wraps up at the end of this week, we should see an increase in Harris's polling numbers yet again.
Well, isn't that why all eyes are on whether the convention will be an extension of the so-called, you know, Harris honeymoon period, or maybe eventually on road to the end of it?
Well, really, nobody knows because we've never had such a shortened election season for a nominee before. We had seen President Joe Biden on the campaign trail. And of course, when he stepped aside in July, there was only a matter of 100 some odd days for Kamala Harris to introduce herself to the country and then campaign around the country. Her speech on Thursday night is going to be key in introducing herself to those voters around the United States who have not yet had a chance to hear from her.
On top of that, the convention is expected to draw, tens of thousands of anti-war protesters. How is it looking at the moment on the first day?
So we have heard there have been a handful of arrests from the protesters. I know, speaking from personal experience, that my shuttle bus here to the convention was reportedly stopped by some of those protests. So far, it's not caused any major disruption to the convention, though.
Well, that's good. Well, in the meantime, though, before I let you go, Catherine, what lies ahead for Donald Trump, though? What is he up to while, Harris keeps herself in Chicago?
Donald Trump is headed to the U.S.-Mexico border soon. He'll be talking about one of his favorite topics, the issue of undocumented immigrants, what he calls illegal immigration. Expect him to be hitting Vice President Kamala Harris really hard on that issue, saying that she has worsened this problem.
All righty, Catherine, thank you so much for your report today. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you.
Coronavirus has been going around here in the country, and this is causing alarm bells to ring, especially as schools here are now reopening after summer breaks. Our An Sung-jin has this report.
As students start to head back to school, the rise of COVID-19 is looking to hit its peak. According to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency on Monday, by the end of August, there's expected to be up to 350,000 COVID-19 infections per week. This figure is close to last year's peak. The agency has pledged to pay closer attention to spread-prone areas and to stabilize the supply of medicine and test kits. This comes as the Disease Control Agency announced that following a cabinet meeting on Monday, approximately 300 billion won, or $224 million, will be allocated to buy additional medicine for COVID-19. This is enough to treat 260,000 people. Securing a budget for more has been crucial as usage has surged by more than 40 times over the past month. The additional supplies will first be provided to high-risk groups and then successively to pharmacies nationwide to stabilize supply. In particular, authorities are paying close attention as most elementary, middle, and high schools across the country will begin their second semester this week. An official from the Disease Control Agency added that COVID-19 prevention guidelines were distributed to schools last week. Those who have been infected should rest at home and return to school once symptoms have disappeared. They also emphasized that a student's period of absence will be recognized as attendance. Authorities have also tightened the criteria for what is classed as a mass infection at high-risk facilities from 10 people to 2, blocking further spread as early as possible. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
To lessen the burden of childcare and educational expenses on parents, South Korea has introduced the Neulbom School program that looks after elementary students before and after regular school hours. The system is now expanded nationwide starting the new semester. Our Iuni tells us more.
On a weekday during summer vacation, first graders at an elementary school in Gyeonggi-do province are engaging in a variety of activities. This is part of the Neulbom School program, introduced in March of this year and expanded in the second semester to provide education and care services for elementary students before and after regular school hours. Education reform implemented by the South Korean government this year has made significant strides to address childcare challenges and ease the financial burden on families by integrating existing childcare services and after-school activities into Neulbom School. Currently, Neulbom programs are available to all first graders for free, unlike existing childcare services and after-school programs. Most importantly, the operating hours are longer, starting as early as 7 a.m. and running until 8 p.m. as needed. Songlin Elementary School is focused on providing a wide variety of classes that cater to the needs of students, spanning from dance to computer programming.
Surveys of parents showed a strong interest in more diverse programs, including more physical activities and better support for students to adjust to school. The launch of the Neulbom School program has allowed us to address many of these suggestions, which is very fulfilling as the program coordinator. I'm growing more confident in our school.
Following its trial run last year, Songlin Elementary School was awarded with an Excellence Award from the Ministry of Education. Through planning and preparation, the school made key adjustments to better run the program. To ensure the success of the program, it is important to address several concerns, including shortages of classrooms and teachers. Let's see some approaches to address these issues.
Using the same classrooms for the new after-school programs caused inconvenience, as teachers had to clear their classrooms. This year, we reviewed available spaces, repurposed small and underutilised rooms, and changed the classroom furniture to meet special needs. Now, regular classes and after-school programs run smoothly without conflict.
To address teacher shortages, the school brought in instructors from the city's dance association.
Whacking is the most fun dance. I'm excited to come to school for dance class. Dancing is really fun.
As part of its Neulbom program, Songlin Elementary School is already expanding its range of programs to include students from other grades. Cheerleading is one of the programs.
At first, being the only guy made me worried about feeling left out, but everyone has been very supportive, and practice has been a lot of fun. I'm excited to continue cheerleading in the future.
With collaborative efforts from both the government and schools, Neulbom School will expand to include second graders by 2025 and serve all elementary grades by 2026. Lee In-hee, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Si-young, and this is The World Now. Russia said Monday that Ukraine had struck and damaged a third bridge in Russia's Kursk region, as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said creating a buffer zone in Russian territory is the final goal of the incursion. Zelenskyy added the incursion was achieving Kyiv's objectives, including stretching Russian forces and creating a buffer zone to bring the war closer to an end on fair terms. Ukraine's leader also hinted at further offensives as he asked Western allies to allow Ukrainian forces to use donated long-range weapons to target deep inside Russia, saying that the Russian invasion could be halted if such a decision was made. Kremlin foreign policy aide Yuri Ushakov reacted to the latest attack on a Russian bridge by saying Ukraine's incursion had pushed the prospect of peace talks further away, before adding that future talks would depend on the situation on the battlefield. Zelenskyy also said on Monday that Ukraine now controls over 1,250 square kilometers and 92 settlements in Russian territory. Now to Italy, where one person died and 6 people are still missing after a luxury yacht was struck by an unexpected storm off the coast of Sicily early Monday morning. A search operation is continuing for those missing, including British tech tycoon Mike Lynch and his 18-year-old daughter. According to the Italian Coast Guard, the 56-meter-long British-flagged sailboat was carrying 22 people and anchored just off the port of Porticello when it was hit by a ferocious storm and sank. Authorities said the missing 6 come from America, Britain and Canada. The sailboat, named Bayesian, was owned by Lynch's wife, who was among the 15 people rescued. Reports say the yacht capsized at about 5 a.m. local time on Monday, with its wreckage lying 50 meters underwater. A Peruvian university has reported that it has achieved the birth of the first successful clone of the Peruvian Paso horse. The researchers at the Universidad Nacional Toribio Rodriguez de Mendoza use somatic cell nuclear transfer technology to clone what is regarded by many as Peru's national horse. William Bardales Escalante, director at the university's Research Institute, said on Saturday that a sample of epithelial tissue was used where fibroblast cells were obtained from for the clone embryos before being implanted in the female horse. According to another researcher at the university, the purpose of the clone project was to preserve and reproduce animals of high genetic value. A rare astronomical event was observed on Monday night across the globe as a supermoon and a blue moon coincided to light up the night sky. According to NASA, Monday marks the first of 4 consecutive supermoons expected this year. However, the combination of a supermoon and a blue moon is a rare phenomenon. A supermoon occurs when the moon is at its closest point to Earth in its orbit, making it appear significantly brighter and larger. A blue moon occurs when there is a second full moon in a calendar month or the third full moon of a season, which has 4, as was the case this time. The blue supermoon is expected to fully appear for 3 days, allowing an evening spectacle for sky watchers across the globe.
Good morning. Typhoon Jongdari is forecast to have a powerful impact on the south coast and Jeju Island. Right now, the typhoon is passing through waters south-southwest of Seogwipo and will pass west of Jeju late this afternoon before reaching waters west of Mokpo tomorrow at dawn. A typhoon advisory has been issued in waters of Jeju, and heavy rain alerts are in place for parts of Gyeongsangdo provinces. And these typhoon-related alerts will expand in southern regions as the day goes on. Heavy rain of 30 to 50 millimeters an hour will lash down from the afternoon along with strong winds, but central parts of Korea will see passing rain instead during the day today. Despite rough weather, the heat will not subside this afternoon. Seoul gets up to 36 degrees Celsius, Daegu, Gyeongju topping out at 35 degrees. Now, on and off rain in the forecast through Thursday with a slight drop in highs, but it will jump right back up heading towards the weekend. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That wraps up our morning edition of Arirang News. Thanks for watching.
보내준 건 적거긴 거 dream and drive 출주하는 꿈의 모양 when I 날아다니네 월월 난 어디 있니 넌 알고 있니 거북이 날아다니네 마치럼 달콤한 그대의 입술과
요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지.
제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기.
한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸? 진짜 한국에선 어떻게 먹는지 알려줄까?
K-바비큐? 신김치랑 먹어야지.
치킨? 치맥 페스티벌은 처음이지?
김치? 종류만큼 먹는 법도 가지각색.
김밥? 시장에선, 산에선, 바다에선 이렇게.
국밥? 취향 따라, 입맛 따라.
이런 한국, 와보지 않고는 모를걸?
We're here to bring you a new type of news show. New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Tuesday, August 20th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and this is News Generation. Today, we're joined by Kwon Ji-yeon. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. And Im Sang-yeon.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now, as usual, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online. South Korea has seen a consistent decline in the number of self-employed individuals for 6 months in a row. According to Statistics Korea on Monday, the number of registered self-employed dropped by 62,000 from the previous month, bringing the total to 5.72 million in July. This ongoing decrease is largely driven by the closure of one-person businesses, which have seen an 11th month decline, down to 4.27 million last month. The agency says this drop is likely due to weak consumer spending and high interest rates, forcing many small business owners to shut down. Staying in Korea, Typhoon Jongdari, the 9th typhoon of the season, is expected to make landfall in Korea on Tuesday afternoon. While typhoons typically bring cooler temperatures, this one is likely to keep the weather hot and humid. This is because in addition to rain clouds, the typhoon will also bring warm and humid winds. Jeju Island and the south coast are expected to experience heavy rainfall tonight through early tomorrow. The typhoon is predicted to move out of the country by Wednesday morning. Finally, with Chuseok, also known as Korean Thanksgiving, less than a month away, a recent survey by a domestic travel platform shows that 63% of office workers are planning to extend their holiday to a total of 9 days. They plan to take extra days off on Thursday, September 19th and Friday, September 20th, since this year's Chuseok holiday runs from Monday, September 16th to Wednesday, September 18th. Among those planning a longer break, 61% answered they are considering long-term travel. So here in the studio, I want to ask our panelists, how are you planning to spend this long or extended Chuseok holiday?
Well, as far as I can remember, Chuseok holiday was not a special day for me because my family was not the typical Korean families where we used to gather up with the relatives and eat the traditional Chuseok meals. Instead, I think our family used to stay in Seoul, and we sometimes used the benefit of the holiday to go abroad or take family trips. So I was kind of lucky, I should say, to have a family like this, or else I would have been stuck in the highway with the traffic jam hours and hours, and I wouldn't have to listen to the naggings and scoldings of the aunties and grandmas.
Like, when are you gonna get married?
Oh, exactly. And I really hate that. So for this Chuseok holiday, there you go. I'll be the home protector as usual. I'll be staying in bed, watching my house. So that's my Chuseok plan.
Well, that's a very comfortable and nice way to spend a long holiday, I guess. So what about you, Jiyoung?
Yes, I am among the 61% who is going to travel. But I am planning to spend the Chuseok holiday next month traveling with my family and my husband.
Good for you.
Yes, because my child has a week-long week off for the holiday.
Wow.
And this kind of extended break is kind of a sort of a fantastic opportunity to give hardworking adults and students a much-needed rest. So, well, in the past, our extended families have often traveled during Chuseok holiday or Thanksgiving holiday. If we were to travel separately, we would meet up beforehand in order to catch up and have a meal together, since we don't strictly follow those traditional customs like performing the charit ritual for the ancestors. We enjoy a more relaxed approach to the holiday, and who knows, maybe this time, I will actually finish a book before the holiday ends.
Oh, that's a great plan. Well, I think that I'll be doing the charit ritual, honoring and thanking our ancestors, and probably work. But anyways, I hope everybody has a nice Chuseok holiday next month. And that was our news feed for this Tuesday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Today, we're going to talk about a rental business that's gaining huge popularity, especially among the younger generation. Take a look.
We all know about renting cars or houses, but have you ever heard of renting a friend or even a family member? These services, known as Rent a Friend or Rent a Family, allow people to hire professionals to pose as their friends or relatives. There's also a service called Date for Hire, where you can hire a fake girlfriend or boyfriend, sometimes even bringing them home to meet the family. These services are becoming more popular here in Korea. So, what's fueling the rise of this platonic temporary companionship market?
Right, so these rent-a-family or rent-a-friend or rent and acquaintance services have been getting a lot of attention lately, especially after recent viral videos of so-called street girlfriends in China. But they've actually been around for well over a decade. So for those who are new to this concept, could you tell us, Jiyoung, where and when did these rental services first start off?
Yes, as you mentioned, these services have been attracting quite a bit of attention recently, particularly after viral videos of street girlfriends in China. However, this concept isn't quite new. It gained popularity in Japan over a decade ago, where people could hire stand-ins for various personal roles. And these services range from renting a father figure for a child who doesn't have one, and also to hiring an uncle who's an experienced professional in a particular field. A recent controversy in China where women have been offering offering some hugs and kisses for a fee highlights the ethical concerns surrounding such services. And these services reflect the complex needs and sort of desires within modern societies where traditional relationships and roles are sometimes absent or need to be simulated for various reasons.
There are those concerns, but it's kind of like a fact that these services have become well established in Japan, as you mentioned, and we're also seeing them rising in China. And today we're talking about this topic because it's becoming huger here in Korea as well. So Tanya, I want to ask you, when did this professional stand-in service catch on here in Korea?
Yeah, so first of all, as I was listening to the examples Ju-hyun mentioned, it felt like that it shows how far the capitalism can go.
Because you can buy a kiss or a hug.
Really, yeah, you can actually buy the time of the other people in that way. So these kind of stand-in services actually turned mainstream in the early 2000s here in Korea. So these kind of part-time workers of the stand-in services become the guests for special events like weddings or funerals. And as for women, they hire these part-time workers to act as their boyfriend and partner.
Right. So these rentable actors, if you pay a certain amount of money, then they act as your family, your friend, a wedding guest, funeral guest, you name it. Now, I want to ask our panelists once again, what are some of the most common or popular roles that people in Korea look for, especially the users who are using this rentable service?
Well, in Korea, the most common type of stand-in job is hiring wedding guests. But if you look at the drama, in the drama 인간 실격 or Lost in English, actor Lee Jun-yeo's character Kang Jae runs a service company where employees act out any roles the clients request, including the stand-in wedding guests. And likewise, in the film Wedding Impossible, actress Chun Jong-seo also takes on the role of a hired wedding guest. And even for things like singing at the wedding or hosting the event, some people hire stand-ins who pretend to be their friends.
Right.
And there are also jobs for standing in line or running errands, buying something from
everything.
Right. And while there used to be some stand-ins for tasks like cleaning, laundry, and recycling, these services have now become much more specialized with professional companies offering them. And, you know, in Korea, how you are perceived by others is quite important, it's very important. So people hire guests to avoid looking like they lack social connections.
Right, because if you actually pay these actors to kind of act as your friend, it kind of shows to others who don't know that you have a lot of friends, you have a big social circle. So this may be one of the reasons why these services have become huge and booming here in Korea. Now, to Sang, I want to ask you, there are a wide array of roles that these paid professional actors can serve as stand-ins. So what kind of services especially stood out to you?
Yeah, so as I was doing this research for this topic, I found some very interesting services that I've never heard of. So, for example, there's a service called Being in Company with a client without saying any words.
Without saying anything.
Submits a divorce document. So I don't actually get the intention for this, but I guess it's just because the client might feel lonely when submitting the documents. And also there's another interesting examples that says waving hands as the client moves out from his house.
Like
so,
this.
Yes, I don't get this either.
Goodbye.
But maybe the client wanted to show off to the neighbors that he has people who will miss him.
Yeah, good relationship with neighbors.
Yeah, he wanted to maybe prove that he has a good relationship with the neighbors. So there are also like other examples, such as going to dinner with a client to meet in-laws before marriage, and acting as a friend, watching movies together and eating meals together. All these kind of services include in the category of the stand-in service. And there are also like special agencies for the stand-in service workers, and it dispatches the part-time actors to act as a friend, parents, lover, you name it.
Right.
So you can see here that there are a wide spectrum of these types of services, and some of them may seem absurd actually, but it's a clear fact that the popularity of the stand-in services is rising in Korea, and the number of these special agencies have also gone up since 2015.
Right, so these stand-in services have definitely gained a lot of popularity here in Korea and in countries like Japan and China, as we've mentioned. Now, to find out what it's like in other parts of the world, we also asked our viewers if similar rental services exist in their country. And here's what 3 of them said. So if we look at the comments, LeonTeo93 says, in Singapore, there are services that allow people to rent friends or companions for social events and activities. The perception of these services can vary. I see them as a practical solution for social needs and a way to combat loneliness. However, others may view them with skepticism or discomfort. Sim19, sorry to shorten your name, says apparently this is also becoming a thing in Spain. I've never heard of anyone using this service, but I found a few companies that provide it not only for event companions, but also for people who need someone to communicate with. I think it is a great idea, although being a paid service could create problems in the future in case customers get emotionally attached. Lee Jo family says in Australia, it really isn't common to see these kinds of services. However, I can imagine this would be very helpful for people that suffer from things such as social anxiety. Personally, I am all for this type of thing and hope people don't create a stigma towards it. So based on the comments from our viewers, there are other countries that are providing or having these stand-in services. And it seems that a lot of our younger generation are welcoming or favorable towards the services. So as your panelists are both part of the younger generation, I would like to ask you, have you used these services? And if you haven't, is there any type of services or roles that you would like to pay and use?
Well, I didn't have a chance to use the stand-in for my wedding.
You're popular.
No, not really. But as a busy working mom, if I can't attend my child's mother's praying meeting, which is held every month, I would use a stand-in service to go in my place. However, there is one condition. My one condition would be that the stand-in must pray with genuine sincerity. That's right. And after all, it's quite important that my child feels supported, even if I can't be there myself. And I'd also make sure to follow up afterwards to hear how it went, just to stay connected. And if the stand-in, he or she is quite a good, does her nose to drill, they might just become my secret weapon for my future commitments.
Oh, wow.
Yes, indeed.
I see. So stand-in mother.
Stand-in mother.
So you would like to try out a stand-in mother service. What about you, Sang-yeon?
Well, I'd rather look lonely than deceiving others by using other people. But in case when I'm faced with an emergency of when I have to use physical labor, then this service might come in handy. For example, if my parents suddenly passes away, then I would have to hold a funeral as a son. In that case, I would be chaotic in the beginning because I never have experience of hosting such an event. So in that case, if I hire the stand-in service workers, they can at least greet the guests and also deliver the food in the hallways, and which would unburden the things I would have to care for during the funeral events. And also, I may hire the stand-in service for friends, not to make real friends, of course, but if I hire those kind of stand-in friends, then they would listen to my concerns and make me a bit comfortable, because there are often the case where your actual friends and your families do not really pay empathy or or show like condolences to your worries. So if I have someone to, like a counselor, like a psychological therapist, if I have someone to listen to my concerns, then it would actually relieve my distress.
So stand-in mother, stand-in relatives, or a stand-in friend. I see. So we've, right until now, we've looked at the various examples of these professional services. Now, to delve deeper into why these services are booming, we're going to invite an expert in psychology to our talks right after this break. So today we're joined by Ian Jung, a licensed therapist at the UME Psychological and Counseling Services in Seoul. Great to have you back on the show, Ian Jung.
Thanks.
Good morning. So our first question for you today is, why do you think rent-a-friend or rent-a-family services have become so popular here in Korea, as we mentioned in our discussion earlier?
The popularity of rent-a-friend or rent-a-family services in Korea can be attributed to several cultural, social, and psychological factors. South Korea is known for its fast-paced, high-pressure society, where social expectations and work demands can be overwhelming. Many individuals experience loneliness or social isolation due to long working hours and other factors. These services offer a way to fill the emotional and social void without the complexities of maintaining long-term relationships. Additionally, in Korea, the social harmony and image are highly valued. The ability to rent someone who can fulfill a specific social role without the strings attached to a genuine relationship can be seen as a practical solution to meet social expectations without the emotional investment.
Okay, so Eun-jung, the relationships formed through these services are usually on one-time or short-term ones. Why do you think some people prefer to pay a one-time friendship rather than going out and making a new friend naturally?
Some people may prefer paying for one-time friendship rather than making a new friend naturally for various reasons. But forming natural friendships requires time, effort, and vulnerability, which some individuals may find very challenging. Renting a friend provides a quick and convenient way to fulfill social needs without the emotional risks associated with building real relationship. So this can be particularly appealing to individuals who are expecting lower emotional investment.
Okay, Eun-jung, then what are some potential risks or downsides when using these kind of stand-in services?
While these services can be helpful in short term, they also carry certain risks. One major downside is that they can reinforce social isolation. Relying on rented companionship might prevent individuals from developing the social skills and emotional resilience needed for genuine long-term relationships. This can lead to a cycle of dependence on paid companionship, which could deepen feelings of loneliness over time. Moreover, there's a risk of blurring the lines between professional services and personal relationships, which could lead to confusion and emotional distress. While these services can provide temporary companionship and help meet certain social needs, they should be used with caution, as they may contribute to longer-term emotional and psychological challenges. I think it's important for individuals to balance these services with efforts to build genuine, meaningful connections in their lives.
Definitely. All right, Eun-jung, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so wrapping up our discussion today, I want to ask this same question to our panelists. What do you think users of these stand-in services should be mindful or careful of when they're trying to use them?
Well, when using stand-in services, there are a few important points to keep in mind. Firstly, since you are dealing with strangers, it's crucial to remain cautious and ensure you are using a reliable service, the company itself. And secondly, be aware that you might feel a sense of emptiness, as Eun-jung mentioned, or dissatisfaction after the experience, as these services might not fully replace genuine personal connections. And remember, they can't quite replace the warmth of a real hug or the awkward dance moves at your cousin's wedding.
Right, because they are mostly one-time temporary services. What kind of advice do you have, Sang-yeon?
Yeah, so adding on to what Chuyeon said, you got to remember that these people are there for you just because they're paid. It's their job. So don't get too emotional or become too engaged with the person that provides the service. It's just their job. Also, if we just flip the coin from the perspective of these service providers, for example, just like the thing that we mentioned in the beginning, women in China giving kiss and hugs by being paid. there is a higher risk of turning into an illegal category when these kind of services are overly provided, such as sexual prostitution, which could cause a social controversies. So I think both the service provider, also the service users, as well as the government and the service agencies should all be aware of this fact and set a clear guideline and frameworks for this new industry.
Right, definitely some points we should be mindful of. So I hope our discussion today helped you learn more about this professional stand-in service that's gaining traction in many parts of the world. And that's all from us today, but NewsGen will be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks today to Kwon Ji-yeon.
Thank you so much.
And Im Sang-yeon.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.
요즘 한국에선 어떻게 노는지 알려줄까?
한국에선 아이돌이 되어볼 수도 인생 번호를 찾을 수도 있지.
제일 핫한 포토 스팟은 여기.
한국은 분명 너에게 새로운 영감을 줄 거야.